Thank you, Talise. Good morning, everyone. My name's Tom Gonzalez. I'm Manitoba Agriculture and Resource Development's vegetable crop specialist, and I'd like to welcome you to the 10th and final webinar of this year's 2021 Horticulture School Summer Webinar Series. The team that's providing the information includes staff from Manitoba Agriculture, Agri-Food Canada, and Assiniboine Community College. In today's webinar, we're able to take questions from those of you that are on online here. And if you have any questions, just type them into the question and answer feature of the webinar. We'll be monitoring the Q&A, and we'll get to your questions as soon as we can and try to give you an answer. Today, we're going to cover a few areas. There'll be a summary of this year's fruit crop season. There'll be a discussion on crop nutrition. There'll be a discussion centered around summary of disease issues and a look ahead to 2022 from a disease perspective. And we had a producer question come in regarding the increasing costs of inputs. And Kim Brown will be discussing a little bit about fall weed control and the best way to preserve soil moisture. Felice, could you please launch the poll questions for me?
Sure can. So our first question is, how do you see yourself within the horticulture industry? Are you a producer of horticulture crops? Do you work in agri-supply or agribusiness? Are you government or university personnel or other? So it looks like we're already up to 40% voted today.
Okay, well, that might be all we're getting then. I'm not sure.
No, up to 80 now. So that looks pretty good.
Yeah, that
so I'm going to go ahead and close that poll. All right, so it looks like 50% are producers of horticulture crops and 50% are other.
Okay, that's interesting. So if you could go to number 2, please.
Perfect. So the second question, if you are a horticulture producer, what size is your farm? Is it 0 to 4.9 acres, 5 to 14.9 acres, 15 to 49.9 acres, or is it 50 plus acres? Again, we have 20% who have voted already.
Okay. Well, we'll give it a second or two, see if we can squeak that up a bit. Well, that may be all we're going to get, eh? So let's see what we got.
Yeah, looks like we got about 50% who have voted. Okay. And the results are 33% are 0 to 4.9 acres. There are 33% 5 to 14.9 acres and 33% as 50 plus acres.
Okay, right on. And thanks very much to the attendees for answering those questions. It just gives us a better idea of who is tuning in to the webinars and that in the live format versus the YouTube, watching it later on YouTube. So thanks for doing that. Our first discussion today is brought to you by, but is from Anthony Mintenko. Anthony is the fruit crop specialist for Manitoba Agriculture and Resource Development. And Anthony will be providing a fruit crop summary from 2021. Here's Anthony.
Thanks, Tom. I do have a slide up if you want to go to that slide. That's possible.
Do I have that slide?
No.
No.
Can they go to my screen?
I believe they can. Talise, could we switch to?
There you go. Perfect. Just one slide, so we also have some nice pictures of fruit. So yeah, so for today, kind of just gonna brief kind of overview of how the season went and how we're going into the winter season for the various fruit crops. As we all remember, it was an unusual summer for sure. We had very warm May and particularly June. June is almost like July temperatures. But to throw that everything in the mix is we had a late frost in May, which really affected the areas that did get a hard frost, like in the Interlake Capital region of -5. We were looking at complete top kill of strawberry plants. They can regrow, but it definitely delayed them, and it definitely reduced their yield potential for sure. And compounding that is we did have a little bit more winter injury than usual in the strawberry crop. So, and then we just moved along with the strawberries. Our harvest was, end of June, early July. A lot of growers second week July. And we had incredible heat at that time, and that was definitely shortened the picking season. Just that you were seeing a lot more heat stress on the plants and sun scald on the berries. You can think about how the dark red of a strawberry and that sun shining on it, especially we were in the mid 30s Celsius. It's a lot of heat going into that berry. So not only does that can potentially cause sun scald on the berry, which shortens the lifespan of that berry, means you need to pick more frequently, but it definitely lowered yields because you potentially had more unmarketable fruit in the field due to the sun scald. And then just going through we were seeing similar things with the raspberries. So as you've seen that lower center photo, that's sun scald on raspberry. So we were seeing issues on that as well. And then, through this whole thing, we weren't getting any rain. So although all strawberry growers do irrigate, irrigation's still not the same as a good rain. So we're, with the strawberries, we're able to keep them going, but maybe not thriving. And then not as many growers have a system set up to water their raspberries. So they definitely were seeing a little bit more drought stress there as well. I guess, and the one crop that did seem to fare quite well was the Saskatoons. Even though we did have that late May frost, the Saskatoons came through that definitely with some flower injury, but normally a Saskatoon would typically abort flowers anyways, so it just poured more resources into the remaining flowers that pollinated, and we actually had, for most growers, above average, for sure average, if not above average crop for Saskatoons. They seem to come through the heat and the drought a little better. I mean, being a small tree, a shrub, they definitely have the ability to access water sources deeper down than, say, like strawberries, which frankly they're, most of the root mass for a strawberry is within the first 6 inches of the soil surface. So they did really, really well. And then going through the rest of the summer, Again, we still have hot and dry conditions. So we were encouraging growers to continue irrigating, especially the strawberries, and to water the raspberries and even Saskatoons if you have the means, because a lot of these fruit crops do put down their fruit buds for next year, this year. So kind of August is kind of a critical period, especially in strawberries, to have the kind of fruit bud initiation for next year. So having adequate water definitely helps to, you're kind of like protecting your yields for next year by making sure there's some good fruit bud development. Going into fall here, we're happy to see a lot of regions in the province getting a lot more rainfall. So I think for the tree fruit in particular, you know, these good rain events, you know, 3/4 of an inch, inch and a half are definitely good for them to be hydrated going into winter. You know, everything is going dormant right now. Tree fruit, strawberries, raspberries. So get those roots high, you know, good moisture on the roots definitely will help these plants get through the winter, not dry out over winter with the, you know, the cold, dry winds of winter. So really thankful that we are getting some rain events here. Otherwise, I think growers are going to have to do some serious watering of their tree fruit. So this is very welcomed. So feeling more optimistic for next year with this rain, and that we can hopefully get some good production for next year. Definitely adds anything that can add to that soil moisture this time of year is quite welcome. So that's kind of all I have, Tom. So if
Okay.
you want to move on from there.
Thank you. And I just gonna have a quick look for any questions, see if we got anything in there. I don't see any. If just a reminder that if any of you attendees would like to ask a question, feel free to type it into the question tab there, and we will endeavor to get you an answer. Anthony, you'd mentioned about the Saskatoons. I know that there were bushes that historically had not done nearly as well as they did this year. And you'd mentioned that, I think you mentioned that Saskatoons did well this year. I wonder why.
Well, I think part of it was, you know, one of the major diseases of Saskatoons is leaf and berry spot disease, Entomosporium, and it was that infection period is right at flowering. So if you have wet conditions, rainy conditions at flowering, that's where you get a lot of disease development. I mean, one plus about this season was dry, and it was dry during flowering for Saskatoon, so it definitely reduced that disease pressure. So kind of any of the flowers that did survive kind of through that frost weren't slowed down by any disease development. So that definitely contributed to a higher yield for sure.
Right on. Well, thanks very much, Anthony, and appreciate your talk. Okay, we're going to move on, and Vikram Bisht is Manitoba Agriculture's horticulture pathologist, and he's going to provide a summary of disease issues. Talise, could we switch to my view, my screen, please? There we are. Thank you.
Can I go to the next question?
Yeah, just go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I will be talking about not what happened in the season, but what is currently in the fields, and a couple of points for what to be done for the coming season. Some of the vegetable crops still being harvested will be carrots, some parsnips. Now these are commercial levels, but there will be smaller farms which may have other crops as well. Squash and pumpkin, a lot of has been taken off, but some is still in the fields. And I will have a couple of points for some of these vegetables. One of the important diseases that after harvest is a possibility is the Sclerotinia Rot on carrots. And in this case, the infection starts in the field. In case the field was with a Sclerotinia susceptible crop in the previous year, previous rotation. So even though the season was dry, there was fair amount of irrigation provided, and when the canopy closes, there is enough you can say humidity within the crop canopy to lead to some infection. Carrots which are partly you can say abrased or injured are easily infected, and poor circulation in the storages is a big problem which favors the rotting of the disease by the disease. And once you have fungal infection, you could also have soft rot, and there may be certain pockets in the storage which could be actually leaking water. So that level of rotting is basically because there is poor circulation. Tom and I had worked on a fungicide treatment, and we found a fungicide scholar to be extremely effective if you are commercial. But if you are going to be a smaller scale grower, then I think good air circulation is good enough. This is the treatment that we had tried, and here you can see the treated carrots versus the untreated carrots. The top here looks really not too bad, but when we remove the carrots on the top for the untreated, basically everything was joined together by this mycelium. So highly effective fungicide treatment. I'm going to now go into the pumpkins. We'll not be talking much about parsnips because even though we have some crop growing in the fields, there are not too many growers growing parsnips. So I'm going to talk about the pumpkins and squashes. A lot of people have already harvested. Here you can notice the Shammer farms that they had made a collection in rows so that they can pick it up. This is right now being cured, and curing is one of the most important you can say steps in handling pumpkins and squashes. And here I have a short link which indicates, or you can refer to, how to cure and store the squashes. This is what will happen sometimes if you put your pumpkins in a cold storage. Cold storage somehow does not have a very good air circulation. The humidity is high, and even the good-looking pumpkins just turn rotting. Here, I let these pumpkins actually continue with the infection to get a good picture. Now, this is a good picture for a pathologist. Okay, there are a lot of diseases that can grow on the pumpkins and squashes, and it's good to have very good curing. So here are some steps that those who have harvested or are still harvesting these gourds would be harvest when fully ripe. And how do you tell it is fully ripened? You try to put your thumbnail into the fruit, and if you can't, then I think it is fairly good to go. And what happens by the curing is that some of the wounds that happen because of handling would also heal. Curing is for 10 to 14 days in warm and dry conditions, and they can be out in the field, or you can bring it into the sheds and keep it at room temperature for about a month, and it should be good. Important thing is you can also use artificial heat once it gets very cold. 26 to 30 degrees would be a reasonable temperature if you can use some heaters, and the humidity should not be high. Basically, we are trying to dry the surfaces and make the outer shell hard. And for storing, good to have a single layer on shelves if they are possible, or on the ground, but not to have heaps of them. And the temperature should be 10 degrees, that is okay. 15 degrees is better, and the humidity should be rather low. At 95% humidity, if you're storing in a potato storage, it is not a good idea. So again, cold storage rooms are not a good way to store your pumpkins and squashes. Now, coming into the next season, this year we did not get many reports, even though there were one or two calls for the disease. Fire blight is a endemic problem in our province, and there are certain varieties which are very tolerant, and there are certain varieties which will be highly susceptible. So at this time, it is probably a good time to do the pruning. Prune away all the old canes, and also any canes which look infected. They have discoloration on the stems which are unusual. That is the time to do the pruning. We can have serenade application or double nickel application, which may reduce some of the bacterial load, but it may be also tried early in the spring. The other two problem diseases for these raspberries are the spur blight, and right now I'm not trying to say put fungicides. That is one of the options during the season. Right now, this is what the spur blight infected canes would look, or they would have small pin-like structures on the stems. And then the other one is the cane blight, where you have ash color symptoms and sporulations. So the thing is, I'm showing you these diseases that need to be taken care of, and pruning at the moment is one of the best ways. So if you prune, you are able to remove most of the inoculum that you will otherwise have to face in the springtime. Better to prune now than in spring. That is my opinion. And we prepare for the next season by basically pruning, reduce the inoculum, and there are certain endemic issues that we need to look into in the coming year. And these two products, it is best to apply when before you get the problem, rather than look for these products when the problems already are in this farm or in the crop. So this is what I have for now. This is just pathology interesting photo on the squashes and pumpkins that I wanted to show. And this is happening in the storages. So it is important to make sure that there's no free moisture and they're not stored in cool temperatures. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send in a question or call me later and we can figure things out.
Yeah, and the other way to do questions, if you have any questions for Vikram or any of the presenters, or even a question that isn't related to any of the topics we are discussing, type it into the questions feature, questions tab there on your screen, and we can deal with it. Okay. I think what we'll do next here is, I'm just gonna go back here. We're going to, John Hurd is going to discuss a little bit of, a little bit to do with crop nutrition and that. And I believe John is ready to go. Are you ready to go, John?
Yes, I am. Am I live?
I can hear you.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks for the chance to make some comments here on the soil fertility status of the soils. I'm not sure if horticultural clients have been doing measures this year, and
Seem to have lost John there. We're just gonna try to see if we can get John back. Give us a moment here. We're tracking John down.
nitrogen levels. Sorry?
Yo, you're back, John. You disappeared for a moment. Your voice, you cut out there for a moment.
Okay, okay. Well, I'll just keep talking then. Yeah, so soil test levels tend to be very high if they occurred, for example, under wheat or canola, and they were in a droughted soil conditions. So for horticultural producers, you can't presume what your soil test levels are. You need to test, and I'm sure that you do. And so it's very important to assess, because if you have been pricing or listening to the fertilizer markets these days, you know that two things: prices are high and there's great uncertainty in fertilizer supply because of worldwide shortages or shortages being caused. And so some of the fertilizer companies right now are unable to supply what you think you might wish to have. I guess the only advice we have is to prepare yourself, get an inventory on your soil, what it is that you need, be prepared to secure supply given the opportunity. And that may mean, taking some sort of delivery over winter and storing. And something that may fit within a horticultural system is accessing supplies of manure and meeting your fertility needs that way. So I would just say, we're in kind of uncharted waters here with some both pricing and supply of fertility being questionable now. I guess the other thing I wanted to note is that if you had been in a system where you had established cover crops after your horticultural produce, the decision is always, when am I done tolerating that cover crop, using up water or taking up fertilizer, and when has it achieved what it needs to achieve? When does it have enough residue to provide erosion control over winter and spring, and then terminating it at that time. Of course, if you're terminating it, it means by spray, because if we terminate with tillage, then it's not providing erosion control anymore. And other than that, Tom, the winter is the period by which the farmers or growers will sit down over the kitchen table again with their agronomists and draw up plans, and that's the time to do the fertility planning. So make sure you've got your soil test in hand when you're doing that annual meeting.
Okay, well, that's good information, John. I'll just check the questions tab here. Give me a second, see if there's anything in there. I don't see anything right now. Your comment regarding fertilizer availability and price kind of leads into the next thing I was going to deal with. Was a producer had emailed me a question, and the question was, how high will input costs rise, and can we expect crop prices to match these increases?
Huh. So really what they're asking, what came first, the chicken or the egg? High crop prices came before high fertilizer prices, and there are very good economists that work with fertilizer and other input companies that can figure out what will the market bear. So unless this is a new grower, I'm sure they're not naive enough to know that high crop prices are not going to exist without input prices following. So now the beauty for some of the horticultural growers is that they operate closer to the consumer than most crop commodity growers. So you can maybe educate your consumer and jack your prices accordingly. That's something very difficult for commodity growers to do.
Right.
They're basically stuck with whatever the markets are. So that's what you'll have to sit down and see how you're going to adjust your commodity, whether it's, for me, sweet corn or rutabagas or carrots. You're going to have to build in there something to account for higher prices that are coming along.
Right.
And we don't need to feel unique. This is continental. That doesn't mean they're going to get carrots cheaper from North Dakota now than here. They'll be dealing with those same price issues, those same higher costs.
And I think too, one of the things in market for growers who are marketing through a wholesaler or that, we're still tied. Their prices are tied to what the cost of bringing that. Let's say we're talking about I don't know, carrots or whatever we're talking about as a crop. Whatever that crop would cost to bring in to the province from another jurisdiction. So the return or the price is going to be tied to what other jurisdictions costs would be laid into Manitoba. So yeah, with the prices going up, or John had specifically mentioned fertilizer, but I mean it is across the board. Seed costs are one that looks like they're climbing significantly.
And the other to note, Tom, is the pesticide industry, just supply issues. So the supply chain. So if they're using Roundup or glyphosate, that, as an example, is a product in tight supply. We've known this for months now, and some of these, I would suggest try to work through your retailer, make sure that they know that you're a consumer of that, and if they can secure supplies, I don't think we've got a lot of opportunity to quibble on price. when it's a case of having something or not having something.
Right.
So I would just suggest keep your retailer informed of your needs, so that when the opportunity exists for them to grab some, they know that they're also grabbing some for you.
Right. And I think too, some of, how can I say this nicely? Like for seed, we all have seen over the last number of years the improvement in genetics. I mean, we're not growing the same varieties in most crops that we were, 15, 20 years ago. There are some exceptions.
Oh, are we not growing russet Burbank potatoes anymore? have we turned the page on that century-old genetics?
This is like, John, we still use urea in different forms.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I was afraid I was like Rip Van Winkle. I'd fallen asleep and would replace the russets. So, okay.
No, there are some exceptions, but what I was getting at is that if you're looking for a specific variety of whatever, cauliflower, pepper, whatever it is that works on your farm, and it's not available, try to work with the seed suppliers to try to find something that's similar in maturity, because a lot of times the days to maturity in our season are what's affected what affects yields the most on unproven varieties. So I guess that would just be one caution I would have. We have one additional speaker, Kim Brown. I just have to give her a quick call. She doesn't show up on the list. Talisa, do you see Kim Brown's name on either the staff side or the attendee side?
I do not. I've been watching part. It does look like there's a comment on a questions tab, though.
Okay.
Tom, I'm in on by phone. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, I can hear you, Kim. Okay, right on.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why it doesn't show up. I'm not sure why it does that, but I am in. So.
Okay, great. Yeah. If you want to go ahead, Kim, that would be fantastic.
Sure. Well, since I'm joining by phone, obviously I don't have any slides for you, but I just wanted to make a couple comments. I'm very, very thankful. I'm sure the whole province is thankful for the rains that we've been receiving lately. And, up until then, I was really leery of using tillage to do weed control, but we've got a lot of weed growth this fall, either through volunteer crops, either through, true weeds, or even through like some of our crops regrowing after harvest. And so those weeds were, a weed is basically a plant that's growing where it's not wanted. So those volunteer crops and those regrowing crops are weeds. So all of those weeds are using up valuable moisture as well as nutrients, and both of which are in scarce supply and expensive to replace in the nutrients end of things. And with moisture, we can't replace that. So not on our own anyways. But anyways, so I'm really thankful to see this moisture. So I'd be a little bit more happy with using tillage now that we've had some moisture. When it dries out enough to use some tillage, I would strongly encourage everybody to get their weeds under control before we go into the winter, because we've had such a long fall and a long open fall. We've got a lot of plant growth out there, and a lot of our winter annuals and our perennial weeds are getting quite big already. And I would really encourage you to be doing whatever you're doing for weed control prior to when the ground freezes and winter sets in. And then, as John mentioned, I know a lot of our listeners don't use herbicides, but those that do, we're looking at using Roundup this fall or glyphosate. And as John mentioned, it's in really tight supply. You've got to make sure you get what you get. And you're not going to be able to quibble on price at all. You're just going to have to take what you get and be thankful probably that you can get some, because we've got really, really tight supply where some people just are not able to get what they need. And then that, opens up that just, they have to do things other ways if they can't get the herbicides that they need. And so, like I said, I'm really thankful for the moisture. That makes, for me, the tillage decision a little bit easier. I was very concerned before about using tillage to destroy those weeds because of it drying out the soil then that type of thing. But I think we're in a better spot now. But I would still encourage you one way or the other to make sure those weeds are under control before winter sets in. And that's pretty much all I had, unless somebody's got a specific question.
Okay, well, thanks, Kim. I agree with you 100% in the idea where you were mentioning, the comment you were mentioning about having a concern a while back about tillage of the weeds. And now that we have some moisture in the top bit of the soil profile anyway, it certainly hasn't gotten all the way down to recharge our subsoil moistures, but it certainly will provide a decent start for a crop next year. So I'm not as concerned about tillage now. I agree with that. Okay, we have it's not really a question, but it's a comment that came in from a larger producer here. I just gotta get my mouse working. Okay, here we are. So the comment was, I think you're forgetting that the large scale operations are price takers, not price makers, unless you get into a niche market. And that's what I was trying to get at with the idea of my comment about saying more of a commodity sense. I think I used carrot as the example, or whatever. I can't remember the example I used, but whatever that cost is laid into Manitoba by a wholesaler is basically what the cost is, or not the cost, what the price is that they're going to be willing to pay for local. So yes, definitely. If I didn't make that clear, my apologies. The comment about the niche market is quite true. If you do have something that people want for whatever reason, be it shortage of supply or quality or just a different product, certainly there you can be a bit more commanding on your price. But that's an excellent point. If I wasn't clear on that, my apologies. Okay, just gonna continue on in the questions. There we are. Let's see if we got anything else. I don't see anything else. Any comments, final comments from any of the panelists today? I would say, just as a comment, I'd like to thank everyone for participating as panelists and attendees over the course of the summer. As usual, we like to supply the best information in the timeliest fashion. So if there's any suggestions about what you would like to see as attendees in the way of information or types of presentations, COVID, I think, is going to be with us for a while yet. In-person meetings may or may not be happening through this winter, but yeah, feel free to send me or anybody else on our team presenters your comments, good or bad. That's the only way we're going to get better. Yeah, one of the things too, I guess, is the touch on is the foreign worker program. It's probably more for larger scale producers, obviously, but yeah, with COVID has presented some challenges for that program, as it has for most most all areas of vegetable production. But hopefully things will be working out as well or better now than they did in the start of COVID. Basically, I think if growers have questions, concerns about that, there's a temporary foreign worker employer council that I'm not saying we meet regularly or anything, but if anyone is interested in becoming part of that employer council, you could contact me for that, and we can get you on the mailing list there. I don't see any other questions from attendees. Any other comments from presenters before I wrap it up? Not hearing anything from presenters. Again, I'd just like to say thanks to everybody for this year, and stay tuned. We will be in touch about what our next steps will be. Probably you probably hear something in the next couple of months, likely before Christmas. We'll have an idea of what's going on. So thanks again for all your help and attending. So yeah, thank you. Have a good morning. Bye.